All I hope for is a moment of rational thought and one shot at action before I'm lost to a great saddening madness.
I think I'm addicted to reading. I finish a book and then immediately I start a next book. And I finish that one and immediately I start another one. Because I can either do all the work I'm supposed to be doing or I can procrastinate. But procrastination is bad. But if I read while I procrastinate, reading isn't bad. Nobody says reading is bad, right? So I read and read and read and read. I read 5 books last week, and all the books were, how should I put it? All the books were pretty good. In September, I didn't get my horror fix. So this month, I'm leaning into the horror a bit, which is appropriate for the spooky season. So I read 4 horror books and 1 literary fiction that I want to tell you about. But first, I'm going to run a short intro sequence featuring the music of one of my favorite composers of all time, John Adams. And I'll see you on the other side to talk books. I started the week off with Ararat by Christopher Golden from 2017. This book won the Bram Stoker Award for Best Horror Novel of the Year. That's how I heard about it. And it's set in the mountains, obviously. And I like mountains. I like horror. And so I read it blindly, like I do most books I read. Like I do most things in life, actually, come to think of it. In the story, it begins with an avalanche that reveals a huge cave. So this team of explorers / documentary filmmakers, they climb Mount Ararat with the expectation of documenting their discovery of Noah's Ark. Now that is a tough sell on me. And the horror in the book comes from demon possession, which is another tough sell on me. Ultimately, the book was okay. It wasn't scary, but it wasn't silly enough to be enjoyable for its silliness. But it was okay. It didn't satisfy my horror craving, though. So I moved on to Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge from 2006. Now, I talk about this book extensively in my recently uploaded video, Fun Halloween Reads, because that's what Dark Harvest is. It's a fun Halloween read. I really enjoyed this one. And even though it has a monster and it has quite a few kills, it's not really a horror story. It's more of an action adventure story. So while I did like it, it didn't satisfy my horror craving. So then I moved on to this one here, Under a Watchful Eye by Adam Nevill from 2017. Now, if you've been following this channel, you know that I love me some Adam Nevill. However, this one didn't work on me quite as well as his other books have. It's about a writer living in a beachside town. I am a writer living in a beachside town, so it's off to a good start. And this guy, this protagonist, he sees creepy people everywhere. I live in France, so I'm 2 for 2, right? But ultimately, I had a hard time getting into the story because the protagonist is spineless. He's uh, he's threatened, he's bullied, he's blackmailed, and he does nothing about it. Nothing. And it's hard to get into a story with such a passive protagonist. Now, I love Adam Neville's imagination, the lore he creates to bring in the horror. But such a passive protagonist, it's difficult to bring me into the story. So I moved on to another book, Tender is the Flesh, by Agustina Bazterrica, something like that, from 2017 also. And this one is it's a dystopian book set in a world where cannibalism is institutionalized, where humans are farmed, killed, and eaten. And the protagonist, he works in a processing plant. And I really liked the way that the tone that this story took, the tone that the book took. It's told in a cold and passionless tone, which works very well for the story, juxtaposed against all the horrific things that are going on. It was quite effective. So even though it is horrific, it's not really a horror story. I really liked it, but it didn't satisfy my horror craving. But it's a really good book. It had been on my radar for quite some time because the book had gotten quite a buzz. And recently, a viewer recommended it to me. And I listened to my viewers. So I read it and I liked it. But still didn't satisfy my horror craving. Yeah. So I also read Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa, Cather. And this is a work of literary fiction, despite what the title might suggest. Literary fiction or historical fiction. It's a book written in 1927. And I read this one because my mom had read it and she liked it. And she generally has pretty good taste. So I checked it out. It's kind of a slice of life book about a French priest. Actually, it's the whole life of the French priest. It's not a slice of life. It's a whole pie of life about this French priest who goes to the New World to help the savages be more Catholic. Actually, that's not quite fair. He goes to the New World, to New Mexico, and like at the end of the 19th century, like 1880 something. He goes to New Mexico to help the frontiers people practice their faith. It was nice. I enjoyed the way it was written. It's kind of there's not really a plot to the story. It's just this man's life, and it's kind of you have to wait a long time before death comes, and when it does come, it's not quite as spectacular as it often is in a horror book. But that's not the point. It reminded me of Winesburg, Ohio, but with cactus trees and celibacy. So if you like reading about old times in the New World, I would suggest Death Comes for the Archbishop. It's quite good. So I still haven't satisfied my horror craving. I'm currently reading Grady Hendrix, My Best Friend's Exorcist, because peer pressure. everybody is reading Grady Hendrix. That's all I hear about these days. Grady Hendrix, Grady Hendrix. I had resisted for a long time because the titles of his books are so cute, you know, like Final Girl Support Group or the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, Horror Stjor. I had resisted because the titles just seemed too cute for me, and I think, well, I'm not 20 years old anymore. It's not going to work on me. But everybody keeps talking about Grady Hendrix. Everybody's reading Grady Hendrix. My mom read Grady Hendrix, How to Sell a Haunted House. And my mom never reads horror. She doesn't even read my horror. And she reads Grady Hendrix. So I'm about halfway through. And I'm enjoying it. We'll see. We'll see if it satisfies my horror craving. I suspect I'm going to need more. I suspect that when I finish it, I'm going to immediately start another book. So there you have it. That was my week in reading, or my weir, as I call it. Do you have any experience with these books? Do you have a suggestion of what could satisfy my horror craving? Or if you could just stop by the comment section, say hi. I always enjoy hearing from you. And thank you for watching. I will see you at the next video.